We're gonna start with the Andrew Tate. So we have Andrew Tate right here. Miss Amy has sent in one. We're gonna listen and we're gonna react.
I was in Gaza, if I was in an open air prison, if my family had been annihilated by bombs from the sky, if everybody I knew had suffered the loss of a loved one, if I had no chance of any kind of freedom or democracy or standard of life, would I believe it was an act of terror, or would I believe it's an act of resistance against oppression? I think I understand what happens when you take people and put them in such an inhumane condition. For anybody to sit and say that you're going to take people and put them in absolutely inhumane conditions and give them no standard of life, and they're not allowed to ever fight back, or they are true.
I can agree with you that the plight of the Palestinians for many decades has been absolutely shameful.
So what are they supposed to do?
Nothing justifies it.
Yes. And it's unfortunately an eye for an eye in this world.
Tell me,
I'm not condoning. I'm being a professional and answering
give
to
me
you
one
why
example.
It happened. However, if I was in Gaza.
All right, so I think the little context to this is he's responding to Piers Morgan asked him, "Do you condemn Hamas?"
Yeah.
Right.
And he made a statement that I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
In which to wrap that up, he said, "One person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist," and that's one of the mic drops right there. Miss Amy, I'll let you kind of like toss it off to us.
So a couple of reasons I sent that to you. One is because I have not been a fan of Andrew Tate, and so when I reposted it, I was like, wow. I actually love Top G, because that's what he called himself. And I've watched a lot of him, and I'm not going to say that I support him, because I still think there's some things that he does that's very problematic. However, I understand a lot better the things that he says that are problematic. And I think that a lot of times it's clickbait, and a lot of times, and I also think he's got a little different perspective, having spent time in jail and having his woman hold him down. A lot of things he's had to say about women, I think he's clarified and said, as a millionaire, I want my woman to stay home. But he, so tie back to what we were just saying. But that being said, I love the fact of him speaking out, because he's a voice that people wouldn't expect to say all of that. And I think he also understands the historical aspect of everything that's happening. I think a lot of people do not know the history. We are in a society where if you say anything at all against anybody who is Jewish, you're anti-Semitic. People don't understand that there's a difference between Jewish religion and Jewish ethnicity. There is no Muslim ethnicity. There is no Christian ethnicity, but there is Jewish ethnicity. And the Israeli Zionists are not the same thing as somebody who is Jewish, who, from a religious perspective.
Yeah, and specifically critiquing Zionists is not a critique, and it shouldn't be seen as anti-Semitic, because of Zionism is based out of an atheist ideology. It just is what it is. You look at the founders of Zionism. Most of those guys were atheists, and the whole idea is that God's not going to save us. We need a place to save ourselves. That's what it was kind of based around.
And I was going to say, when I speak on religion, I just want to put a clarification. My mother was an ordained Presbyterian minister. When I was 7 years old, she went back to school and she got her undergrad in religious studies. So you got to figure that's 50 years ago. I'm 57. There was no internet, right? So my house was filled with books, concordances, Gnostic Gospels. She had to read and translate the Bible in Arabic, Hebrew, Greek, Latin, and English. So I had all of that. So my education on religion and history is really strong from her. And so understanding,
so we're gonna get some interesting conversations a little bit later.
Well, the chosen people and what does the Bible actually say, and what is the difference between the Torah and the New Testament and the Quran? A lot of people don't understand the foundations of Islam and where it even came from and why it became a religion. And so, you have to understand all of those things before you can actually have an informed opinion. You can have an opinion. Everybody's going to have an opinion. But having an educated, informed opinion to be able to state something, I think is different. And that's one of the things I liked about the meme is that, I really thought that Andrew Tate was a Neanderthal. Like, I really didn't think, again, clickbait. The snippets that I had seen of him initially, I was unimpressed. And the more I've watched him and hearing him talk about this from a very educated perspective, I was very impressed with that. I mean, I can, you let me know how much you want me to get into all of the stuff I know.
I thought that Johnny probably gonna have
because I think one thing when we're talking about this, because people bring up it's Israeli Palestinian conflict. It has nothing to do with religion.
No.
Religion is a backdrop that they use to market it and to get people on one side or the another, just like the word terrorist. They don't ever use the word terrorist unless it's somebody who's from the Islamic faith.
Yeah.
And so terrorists in today's world, because there's a bunch of different terror people who were like terrorists, but the news they only talk about is Islamic people when they use the word terrorist, jihad. You hear that?
There's Christian and Jewish Palestinians.
Yeah. People don't ever talk about them.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about this, I think you said, something important. The Jewish people, this war isn't against Jewish people.
No.
It's against the Israeli people who are occupying what used to be Palestine. So, Hamas, they're not against Jewish people in the world. They don't care about Jewish people in America. They don't care what you do over here. They don't care about the Jewish people in Europe. Their only issue is with the
Israelis
Jewish people
and the settlers,
and the Israeli people who have occupied and settled in their land when 80 years ago they were 20% of the population.
Well, and it was
in that area. They weren't the majority. So they've came, and when people talk about Hamas, like he said, it's a response. And I think people and that's why I'm glad he said it, because like you said, he's somebody that wouldn't normally say it. A lot of his
the conservatives are in a frenzy right now because of conservatives naturally. If you watch so naturally red pill leans right and right is Republican, and Republicans, if you looked at their last debate, they all going on some almost warmongering type shit when it comes down to what Israeli should do with Palestine, bomb them, flatten the land. I looked at it and I was like, this shit sound crazy. They almost don't look at Palestinians as people in the way that they speak about what Israelis should the Israelis should do. And to me, it's crazy. But Andrew Tate, over the past 2-3 years, so many of his followers also fall into that rank of people.
Yeah.
Like the Trumpers, the Red Pillars, the Andrew Tate guy. It's a big little group that are very, very similar people. But he's saying the exact opposite of what, say, the establishment of that group is saying.
Well, and what's going to be very interesting is the election, because you've got the Democratic Party is who is funding this war. Joe Biden has signed, they're signing off on all of this, and it's, the nuances of this whole thing is insane. If you go back, the reason why this even happened was because at the end of World War II, they punished the Ottoman Empire, basically.
The British mandate, they left.
Exactly.
Israel came in.
And then so they said, well, they need, we feel guilty about the Holocaust, so we're going to give them this land. But the thing is you had to have money to go be there. You had, and so it was none of the people that went there were indigenous. What's interesting is if you look at the foundation of the United States, how did we start? It was a revolution. So were the colonists terrorists? Now granted, we didn't go invade England, right? But it was still, we belonged to England and we fought against it. That's our huge foundation story. We celebrated every 4th of July. Yay us. But then we turned around and wiped out all the indigenous people.
But I guess,
I think that's historically everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like people, it's like bullies get bullied.
I didn't really think about this, but in the perspective that you just put it, it almost might be like the perfect American cop-out, because of we just passed Thanksgiving, and we understand, if you also put it inside the context of there were natives here already, and we came here and just said, "Oh, fuck it, this is our land."
Oh yeah, we discovered it,
and we colonized it, and that's kind of like the exact example of what Israelis are doing to Palestine. So there is one space where we could be seen as quote unquote the classic Palestinians, but there is a big spot where we are the oppressor of the land that we sit in, and truthfully,
some of us
it also I mean it almost
the whole time people said we, I was like, not
some
me,
of us
though.
are
Not
some
me,
of us
though.
are Palestinians.
You
all
say
of us.
But we're
all right, so Johnny, are you all right, Johnny?
I was thinking the same thing.
Let me catch him real quick.
I was there.
So Johnny, real quick, are you an American?
Yeah.
All right,
I'm a Black American.
Fuck you talking
I'm an African American.
All right, so what are you talking about? All right. What are you talking about?
They put a word in front of my American.
But you have a United States passport.
Right.
Johnny, they put a word in front of mine.
All right, my bad. Sometimes I be forgetting.
I'm with you, bro. Again,
what Johnny tends to do is that depending on the week is gonna be like which stance he's gonna stand on real hard. Usually
he's multifaceted, bro.
Yeah, usually he's not black and he's not an African American. He's just American.
Man of sorts.
But today he's a whatchamacallit.
Individual.
Yeah, today he's black. That's what it is. Whatever works in the argument. All right. I don't know. I guess do you have any closing points on that to kind of wrap it up?
No, I was just going to talk about all the history and all the other stuff, but I mean, it sounds like you guys know, so I don't have to educate you by any means. But I just think that I'm agnostic, atheist, whatever. I went through a course of.
I don't want you to get there yet. We're about to lead to a conversation that's going to kind of get us into an interesting space.